All right, we are here at the Biohacking Conference in Orlando, Florida. I'm here with Mr. Bo Eason. I'm Dallas McClain of Biohackers Magazine. We're excited to talk about biohacking, health, and coaching and all of those good things. Bo, welcome.
Thank you. I love this. One of my favorite events. Dave is, I've known him for years.
Yeah.
And he used to come to my events and, learn to tell his story there.
Yeah.
When he was, building Bulletproof and
the coffee is.
Yeah. And so it's been amazing. And I just love this. I love the mindset of the people here. Right.
Yeah.
And I spoke this morning and then yesterday, and it's a blast.
That's great. And when you were talking about the events that Dave used to come to of your side, let's talk a little bit about your history. You're a former NFL athlete. Now you're a coach. You're helping other people reach those boundaries and break through those boundaries to become better people. So when you were doing those types of shows and Dave was coming to those, what did those entail?
When I met Dave, I was training people to tell their story, their personal story, which is what Dave does actually as he built Bulletproof. Mm-hmm. Because I've always had this, I was trained to tell stories just because after football, I wrote a Broadway play, right? So I had to perform that play. So I was the only guy in it, and it went for like 17 years.
My goodness.
So I got trained by these great trainers on how to be on stage, how to physically be on stage, how to, deliver a certain line or content. And that's where all my training was, in the theater. And I did that, like I said, like about 17 years. It was really fun. But what happened was business people would come to the show. Like, guys at Wall Street would come to the show with their wife.
Right. They
didn't know what they were going to see. They thought they were, going to a play, which they were.
Yeah.
But they would often come backstage and go, hey, can you bring this to our business, to our company? And my wife and I at the time were like, no, this is a theater play.
Yeah.
And they would say, well, we would like our people to be able to do what you do on stage, tell their story so they can improve sales and grow their business. So anyway, that's what it kind of morphed into. And that's when I met Dave. Dave came on. He said, wow, I need to be able to tell my personal story. I just didn't even know it was necessary.
Yeah.
And so he came in, we started working together, did one of my events, and then been buddies ever since. That's got to be 7, 8, 9 years maybe. And so that's how it all kind of began.
So with the play, can you talk about the main message and the takeaway that would get people to want to bring that into their circle of community?
Yeah, it's a great question, because at first we didn't know why they wanted us. Because, you're doing a theater play.
Yeah.
And then, the play got bought as a movie also. So then it got bought by a very famous guy named Frank Darabont, who wrote and directed The Shawshank Redemption. Green Mile.
Oh, right, yeah.
So he bought it as a movie, right? So we were like, what do people want? Why are these organizations coming to us wanting a play? And we thought it was because it motivated them or inspired them. But eventually we kept asking, why do you want us? What do you want from what we're doing in this play? And they said, we want our people to be able to do what you do when they're offering our products, when they're making speeches, when they're giving presentations. We want them to have what you have on stage. How did you get that?
To tell a story, the ability to tell a story.
That's right. And the physicality of storytelling is very big in the way I was trained.
Yeah.
And that's how I train people also, is most people, talk with their mouth. And so we're kind of conditioned in this world to look at people as talking heads and just talking, their mouth is moving, but nothing else is. Well, that's ineffective. You don't trust what people say. I mean, the statistics tell us that you just don't trust what people say. Trust them about 50%. But you trust their body 100% of the time. So I was really trained by these two guys to do this Broadway show to be physical, so that nobody could look away from you. No one could go to the bathroom. No one could open candy.
They didn't want to miss anything.
They promised me that if I did what they were coaching me to do, that would be the case. And it turned out to be exactly true. Wow. So, and that's what organizations, companies, speakers, that's what they wanted to learn, because they figured out that, man, our sales force could make so many more closes if they can physicalize their own personal story, have training from this guy, me, and they'll be able to sell more, or they'll be able to ask for more money, or they'll be able to win a political, office, or they'll be a better speaker. That's where it all began.
And that's what you focus on now?
That's what I do now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So training companies and individuals to really be able to tell a story and captivate the audience.
That's right. Okay. That's right. And the promise that we make is the same promise that was made to me. Was we brought in my director of the show was a theater guy, right? So he didn't know anything about sports, and I didn't know anything about theater.
Right.
Well, we kind of met halfway because he brought in a guy who was a physicality coach, a movement coach. coach. So this guy coaches, not only actors, great performers, but dancers, musicians, rock and roll bands.
Yeah.
He also trains, of all people, the FBI and the CIA agents who have to infiltrate the cells over in the Middle East, because the body is what betrays you. It's not, because people don't believe, like I said earlier, they just don't believe, they don't trust what comes out of your mouth. They trust your body 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So what happens with a ballet dancer, a musician, a speaker, a politician, is what they do is they start speaking and they're fine.
Right.
But if they have no physicality or no relation to the expression of this instrument we have called this body of expression, if they have no relationship with that, people will just turn them off, kind of like you turn off, and probably everybody listening or reading this article, we turn off talking heads. We don't trust them. We don't believe them anymore. So if you watch the news, if you watch politicians, if you watch people on TV talking behind a desk or behind a podium, automatically you can't hear what they're saying, and you don't trust them because you can't see their body.
And you tune out.
You're out.
Yeah.
And so it's the body that is necessary. And that's what, Dave went through that kind of training. So I put all of my people through that kind of training.
Would you say there are naturals when it comes to speakers like that? Or do they also have to prepare and get the training in to really learn how to have some certain stage presence when they talk to their body?
I would say not necessarily naturals, but if people have a background in performance,
So
it helps.
From a young age or something.
Yeah, it helps. Like if you're a saxophone player, if you're a guitar player, if you play the drums, if you've danced before, if you've been in front of people, if you were a quarterback, if you're a performer and you're used to being coached and you're used to being told what to do, like stand over there and move here and do this, A, B, and C, and they just do it. They don't think. They just, those people are easy to coach. It's not that the other ones can't be effective. It's just you got to wrestle with them a little bit, because if they're in their head too much, you got to get them lower. You got to get them down here, because this is what people trust, not that. So you got to get like engineers, like left brain people, a lot of scientists.
Yeah.
They're very left brain, so they want to get up here and get really technical with you. Well, that doesn't move the dial as far as expressing yourself, right? So I work with a lot of those people too, financial advisors, because they're so left brain. But once they learn to get down into their heart and into their solar plexus, then they can really blow up their business. Their business explodes, because what they're talking about is money or science, but they're able to be personal with it. They're able to be physical with it.
Yeah.
And that's what really, really makes the businesses just really grow.
So talking about how to train them and some precepts to the training, are there hacks or types of habits or actions that you'll try to get the individual to incorporate into their daily life to really open themselves up to be able to have this presence?
Yeah, I really treat them like athletes, because, if you're in front of people and speaking in front of them, if you take the approach of an athlete, it's so much better, because athletes, especially very high-end athletes, they don't do anything that doesn't work. They don't have time. Like if you're trying to beat Usain Bolt in the 100 meters, you don't have any time to eat something or train at something that does not make you faster than. So your life becomes simple and lean. If you can get, and I do this, I get them to have this athletic mindset so that they activate their body, because this is the instrument of expression, and it's the greatest one that's ever been created, right? I mean, it really is. We just don't use it because we're lazy, and we've been kind of taught to not use our body, and we've been kind of shamed out of this expression of this thing. And as soon as you give people permission to remember who they are, what Mother Nature has given them, they're like a kid in a candy store. They explode. So if you can get them in that athletic mindset of, I'm not going to run the 100 meters against Usain Bolt without a proper warm-up, pregame meal, practice, coach, trainer, massage. If you get them in that mindset, that's how elite performance should be in speaking too. Right. If you really want to.
Those disciplined choices.
Yes. Yeah. And so we get them in that mindset. Then we capture their story, and the most personal story too, and the one that doesn't feel great, because those are the ones that move the dial the most.
Yeah.
No one wants to tell them, but they're the ones that connect you with the audience the best.
Right.
Everyone wants to tell their successful story, right?
Right.
And you think like, oh, that'd be cool. I'll just tell I'm really successful. I was an NFL player. Well, no one gives a crap. Yeah. People care about when did you get rejected? Like what happened to you after they cut you?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I want to know.
It's like ego versus humility.
Yeah.
Right? Those stories.
Yeah. And that's really what human beings connect to, is pain, funny enough, rather than the success.
Yeah, you're so right. How many times have we heard about it in the biohacking industry? Pain to purpose stories.
Yep.
Those are where people find find out where their true destiny lies.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about your NFL history and some of the actions or things that you might have done to keep yourself fit and ready for the playing field.
Yeah, I mean, I played in the 80s, right? So we didn't even know this term called biohacking, right?
Right, yeah.
But the most elite athletes, even of that time, were dipping their toes into like I remember getting in ice when no one, I didn't know any, but when I got drafted in the pros, so I played in high school, played in college, never been in an ice bath in my life. The first day of practice in the NFL, I noticed that the most elite players on our team, right after practice, would go into an ice tub. Mm-hmm. So it was very rudimentary back then, right? It was just ice and water. Yeah. And these guys would get in.
That's how it started.
Yeah. And I was like, what the heck are they doing?
Yeah.
But I noticed the rookies didn't do it and the lesser players didn't do it, but the older guys did it and the elite players did it. So I go, well, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And they go, rookie, you want to last? Get your ass in the ice. And I was like, in there all the way? Yeah. I mean, it was ice. These guys were this deep in it.
How long would they stay in there about?
The older they were, they seemed to stay in longer.
Take a nap.
But us rookies, we'd get in, we'd immediately jump out just like everybody does, right?
Yeah.
But you learn that, wow, I can really practice the next day so much better. I can recover so much better. We didn't call it recovery back then. We just said, wow, my legs feel fresh, where they didn't before. That was my first experience of, biohacking and what we call it today.
Right.
And as, Dave and I became friends and, with the whole, bulletproof area and then moving into, what we're doing here today, I just keep adding these things. And I have kids who are athletes, right? So daily, like this morning, I'm on my phone because my daughter's at a volleyball tournament in Arizona. My son is a big time, 16 years old, but he's a quarterback at a school in LA.
Nice.
And, my brother was a quarterback in the NFL. And so, we're old enough to know, wow, if we only could recover better back in the 80s, we could have played longer.
Yeah.
Meaning more money,
right?
Meaning longevity and, building a family earlier.
Also the enjoyment. You loved playing the game.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And you could just play it longer. Back when I played, the average career span was less than 2 years.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
2 years?
Yeah. And I got drafted in 1984. So less than 2 years. That's if you made a team, which is, nearly impossible.
Yeah.
So the odds of you making the team is impossible. And the odds of you lasting long enough to get to your second contract is damn near no one can do it.
Yeah.
Because it takes 4 years, right? You got to get to that fourth year. So me and my brother played 9 years. I played 5 years, so we were like old men in the league at 27. You know what I mean? But today, as you notice, guys have really learned, they put recovery up front where we didn't even know the word, but if we did know the word, we would have put it in the back.
Right.
And that's been the biggest shift that I learned from not only playing and performing. I learned it when I was on Broadway, because on Broadway, you're performing 7 to 8 shows per week.
Man.
And it's so physical and demanding. I thought football was hard.
Yeah.
And your voice and your whole body and the breathing instrument.
It's taxing.
And since I had 7 knee surgeries when I played, my legs were they were tough. It was tough to get through those shows. So in between shows, I really learned, and this was in the 90s, so we still weren't at this level.
Yeah.
But ice and, massage and I remember getting, chiropractic, hypoderm, what do you call it when they poke you with the needles? What's that called?
Acupuncture.
Yeah. Getting that all the time. And just being able to survive those weeks on Broadway, because the runs can go 6, 8, 10 weeks a year, where every day you got to be up there and giving them all you got.
What I loved about what you just said is the evolution of biohacking, where you didn't call it biohacking, but you were still dipping your toes in and everything, and everyone's learning. And now we're at a point where athletes can't afford not to do these types of things, even to be in the league, as an example, the NFL. And now you're talking about your children and their athletes and everything. I can only imagine what they're going to do when, they get to that stage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Their mindset, because I went through it myself and my kids were young coming up, and at the same time that they were coming up as athletes, the biohacking industry was, growing like till it is today.
Right.
Well, everything that I was learning, I was passing on to them. So their mindset is recovery first, days off first, which ours was never that way.
Yeah.
So our schedule used to go practice our butts off, game, practice our butts off, game, and theirs is recovery, practice, game, recovery, practice, recovery, game, recovery. Recovery's all over the place.
Yeah, totally different.
And nutrition's different. The body work that they get. They like Tom Brady. I mean, I just think he was the kind of one of the guys and the most successful guy.
Yeah.
For us players, watching him play that long, we're all just shaking our heads going, there's no way you could do that.
Not just that long, but at that level.
Right.
So long.
Yeah. He was the first guy that took that on. Yeah. As a superstar player, he really took that on, that sleep, that no drinking. Like, he doesn't drink during the season, like nothing. Yeah. He goes to bed at 7:00. I mean, no wonder the dude won 7 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It's like there's no accidents.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. So my kids benefit from this whole, recovery thing. And it's the first thing on the schedule. And I often tell them, I go, you guys, I didn't even know that word was a word when I was playing.
Yeah.
And now it's the first word.
Yeah.
And I think nowadays, I think people are building into their contract. Athletes should build it in their contract. Like, look, $1 million off the top is going to getting this body ready for the game.
Invest in your health.
Yep.
You have to.
Yeah. And if people, like civilians, just regular people like that are out here in the halls, if they would treat their life like that, I know the people here at Biohacking are obviously doing that. But if the whole culture did that, imagine what we would have medically, health-wise. Imagine the dreams that would come true that are never going to come true because no one's going to last long enough to achieve them. They're just not going to. I always think about that. I always think about, so there's a bunch of occupations out here in our country and in the world that would go away like that if everybody took one step toward their dream and the health of that dream. Because people have dreams, but if you don't have the health to fulfill on it, well, there's no dream.
Right. It's like that quote that says, like, if you don't spend the time and money to invest in your health today, you're going to be using that time and money on your sickness later on.
Oh, yeah.
And then how do you focus on your dream when you have to focus on the sickness?
That's exactly right. I've heard a doctor friend of mine, a naturopath, says, you can pay me now or you can pay the medical industry later.
There you go.
But you're going to pay.
Yeah. One way or another.
Right.
Someone's getting that money one way or another. That's true. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing now and how your approach is different from some of the other big coaching industries out there.
You mean what I'm doing in my business or what I'm doing
in your business?
In my business. So I think this physicality or the reintroduction of this physicality, here's what I mainly am known for this, because this is the way I was trained and I kind of understood it as an athlete.
Okay.
Everybody's so ashamed and has been indoctrinated to apologize for their physicality, for their body and how much room they take up and what this thing represents. So this thing has been taught to be average and mediocre and don't do anything, stand on the sidelines and don't express anything with this body. Well, this instrument that we have is the most expressive thing God ever put on the planet. And if we use it like they're asking us to use it, like, the news and the education system and, the world at large, we're going to all end up sitting in a cubicle, overweight, watching other people move. And that is what I think that people come to me and want to be great and build their business, and the physicality piece with their personal story put together. Like, if you mesh those two things, because your story is great, but if you're just a talking head, your story doesn't move the dial. People don't trust what you say. Yeah. They can connect to your body because the body can't lie. So that gives them trust and intimacy with you, and they don't even know you. So those two things, the personal story and the bridging, or I should say the rebridging of that, because our ancestors had it. They knew how to express their body physically. And that's how other tribes knew not to come in and cross our territory. They knew not to hunt on your land. And you didn't have to say a lot back then. Your physicality said everything. Well, I teach people to do that on stage and in front of a camera. And once they get that, once they surrender to what they already are, everything happens for them. Yeah. And funny enough, like, I don't train people in relationship, but that's the feedback I get all the time. It's like, oh, wow, I'm like, all these ladies now are interested in me, or all these men now are coming up and asking me out after your training. And they go, why is that? And I go, because you are who you are. You're not walking around closing yourself off, having all these physical expressions that keep people away from you. You're actually open, like human beings are.
Yeah.
And so that one thing is huge, especially for guys like Dave. I mean, that's why I'm here at Biohacking, really, is because I trained Dave. And he's built companies based on his story and the physicality of the story, right? Yeah. And the physicality that he doesn't have anymore, the 300 pounds. So he used to be 300 pounds. So he used to walk around with that physicality. Well, when he tells that story, all we do is visualize him at 300 pounds and go, how could this dude be 300 pounds when that's what's in front of me today? Right. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. That makes people trust you. Right. And if trust is at its lowest level it's ever been, which it is.
Skepticism.
Yeah. What better way? What's the quickest way to rebuild trust? You have to share yourself and you have to physically be trusted.
Yeah. You have to impart that reality in a sense that they can connect with.
That's right. Otherwise they're just moving on. They're turning the channel.
Yeah.
Just like you and I do when we watch, people talk on the news or politicians or whoever. Right. We don't trust them. We don't believe them. And, in the medical world, we don't believe them anymore either. So we're like in the exact right spot for where we are in the world. Like most people, I go, look, trust is at its lowest level. And they go, oh, that's depressing. And I'm like, not for us. That's a great opportunity for us to lead. Because if the rest of the world's going to shut this thing down and not express themselves physically and not tell their story, not share their vision, then we're the leaders.
Yeah, that just means we have to rise to the opportunity.
That's right.
Right? Yeah. Okay, a couple more last questions. What's your favorite biohack?
The one that I do the most is cold plunge.
Cold plunges. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting, because you had that experience with the ice baths.
Yeah, I know, right? It's my oldest one too.
Yeah.
But I have a cold plunge. Cool. And I was just talking to the sauna people outside because my wife and I are shopping for a cool sauna. I've done them. We just don't own one. So we're going to get one.
Cool.
And I always get my blood work done, and I'm always out in front because I'm 62. So I'm always out in front because when I was playing, check this out. You're not going to believe this. The lifespan of an NFL player, if you played one snap in the NFL, one play, really, was 55. So I learned this when I was 21, right? So I'm thinking 55 is an old, I'm never going to be there anyway, right?
Yeah,
I'm never going to make it to 55. But now I'm 62.
Yeah.
So I've always stayed out in front of all the brain work. Yeah. Hyperbaric, I do a lot. I get a lot of body work. I'm constantly upgrading everything that I've got. Nutrition, I know all my sensitivities. I know all my weaknesses. Yeah. Cutting out certain foods, adding this, not this. So my wife and I are constantly doing that, and our kids, benefit from it. They don't like it all the time, but they've learned to.
Right.
So, and crazy enough, we had a reunion of when I played for the Houston Oilers, we had a reunion recently, a few years ago, and that was telling. Like that was striking, because once you stop playing together, you don't really see each other, that much. Mm-hmm. Very rare. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the guys like me, great, like healthy, have a great marriage, have great kids, building a company. Yeah. And then I would say maybe 50-60% just a wreck.
Or either don't show up.
Yeah. And you can tell that they're living the same lifestyle as we did in the 80s, like, drinking. And, when you're a football player, you're single. And so you're dating and you're all over them, and you're drinking, you're going to parties, you're eating bad because we didn't know, and you're not getting any recovery. But you're 21 and you're an elite athlete. You can kind of survive for a minute.
You take it for a little bit.
Yeah. But you could really tell the difference at this reunion of the guys who changed their lifestyle and moved into what we're talking about today, and then the guys who did. It was completely apparent by the way they walk, by the way they slurred their speech or not, their cognitive stuff, their bellies, 100%. It was just completely shocking to see somebody that you used to be so intimidated by or was such a great guy.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's not a great guy now, but now he's just kind of helpless.
Yeah.
Kind of has a walker. And, that really woke me up too.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, Bo, I've had a great time here today talking with you, and I've learned a lot. I'm sure everyone listening has learned a lot, and I would love to do this again sometime.
Cool.
So thank you.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Can you let everyone know how to find out more information about you? And I know you wrote a book recently. So please.
Yeah, I have a book in there. It's called There's No Plan B for Your A Game. And it's actually a great book. It's an 8-time bestseller.
Wow.
It's really good. Cool. I like it. I'm surprised. When I read it, I go, shit. So I have that, and if they go to boeason.com, they can see the events that I do and the training that I do and the storytelling and physicality and all that.
Very cool.
It'd be great.
I'm sure they'll check that out.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks,
Dallas McClain signing off of Bo Eason.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right.